You're listening to Blaxit Radio with on-air personalities in Costa Rica, Panama, Mexico, and Tanzania. Playing smooth jazz, quiet storm, R&B, reggae, and the very best talk, 24/7.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Today we have the pleasure of chatting with Nikki Evans, a remarkable woman with a truly inspiring story. As a dedicated boy mom, Nikki has raised 2 sons on her own and is now the proud grandma of 3 grandchildren. But Nikki's not just about work and family, she's got a wild side too. Stay tuned for an exciting conversation with this one-of-a-kind lady. Without further ado, let's welcome Nikki to the show. Nikki?
Hello, Devin. How are you doing?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for being with me today. And I'm so happy that we're finally getting a chance to get together and do this interview. And I don't know anything about you, so I'll be learning everything today, just like our audience. And so I made up a list of some questions I'd like to ask you. Maybe you can answer for us. And I would like to start off with maybe you give us just a little introduction about yourself and maybe tell us where you're from, what you did in the States, and what your life was like prior to coming to Costa Rica, basically, just so we have a little bit of background.
Okay. Well, my name is Nikki, and I am originally from Dallas, Texas. How about them Cowboys?
Go Cowboys.
But I moved here from Alabama. I had been living in Alabama since the mid-90s. And what I did there, I had a career in law enforcement. And I did that for about 20 some years total before I gave it all up and moved here to beautiful Costa Rica.
Wow. How long have you been here?
I've been here a year and a half now. I got here at the very beginning of March of 23. So
Okay. And have you been to any other countries besides Costa Rica?
I've not lived in any other countries other than the States. In Costa Rica, I have visited Mexico and Belize. But just when I was starting my traveling journey was when COVID decided to come and shut the world down. So that kind of put me behind schedule on my travel plans. But
but what made you decide? You said you've gone to a couple other places. What made you decide to come to Costa Rica?
When I came here on vacation in 2022, I literally fell in love with the place and I could feel it. And I have always heard people say, oh, I could feel the place. And I thought it was just mumbo jumbo. But when I was here, I knew that I was home. And not saying that I did not feel home in the States, because obviously that was all I ever knew. But however, when I was here, it's almost, I can't put it into words, but I just felt peace and I felt like I could just exhale. And I just literally felt like I was at home. And I decided then, I was like, once I retire, this is going to be my forever home. So I was planning on, of course, coming back once I retired to move, but God works in mysterious ways. And I'm here now way ahead of schedule or anything that I could have ever thought or imagined or even planned for. But I'm just thankful.
Right. So now you were saying something about COVID. So were you here and then you just ended up, no, you didn't end up staying, right?
No, I started my traveling in 2018 abroad because I had initially got my first passport, I think it was in 2010, and I was always waiting for somebody to go with. And my passport had never been stamped. And so finally, 2018 came and I decided, look, I'm just going to do it solo because obviously I will never go anywhere waiting for somebody to do it with me. And so Belize was the first place that I went to, and I absolutely love Belize. And then 2019, I went to New York. That was another world for me then, but I didn't go out of the States. And then 2020, I was planning on coming here, and that was right. I was going to come in April, and the world shut down in March.
Right.
And then So 2021, once it started opening back up, the world started opening back up. I'm like, okay, here we go. Costa Rica coming. And in the interim, my passport had expired at the end of December of 2020, but the world was shut down. So I was like, oh, no need to renew it. Nobody's going anywhere. So long story short, I made my plans to come to Costa Rica, got my airplane ticket, sent in my renewal for my passport, and they sent it back and it got kicked back because I had to retake my picture.
Oh no.
Yes. And so that kind of put a kibosh, and the airline didn't want to refund me my money. So I'm like, I'm not spending any more money on tickets this year. So that pushed me to 2022. And that's when I finally made it. Third time's the charm to
Right,
Costa Rica.
exactly. Well, tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about, when you decided you were going to come to Costa Rica, what was your exit strategy? Even if it didn't turn out exactly the way it was supposed to, how much had you planned and researched, and, what were you going to do to make this a reality, moving from the States to this beautiful country, Costa Rica?
My story, I know, is not typical. I know a lot of people have thought for years, I'm ready to get away from America. I've got to get out of here. That thought never crossed my mind. I never even imagined that I would be living anywhere other than America.
Right.
But like I said, when I came here, this was home. And so my plans were, okay, when I get ready to retire in 8 years, a year or two before, I'll start doing my research. And that's when I'll start making my plans for, making my exit.
Right.
And while I was here, I used a guide for a portion of my time here. And as the time wore on, when I was with them, I was like, oh, I love it here. I wish I could just live here. And their attitude here is so carefree. Just stay. It just so
Like,
you're always
just do
saying,
it, right?
stay. And I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that. And on my way home at my layover in Miami, the guy that I stayed with, the second Airbnb, I guess my tour guide told him that, oh, well, she wants to move here. And everything in Costa Rica is for sale, I guess, if the price is right. So
Exactly.
actually, yeah, he messaged me and he was like, I hear that you're looking for a place to buy here. And I was like, well, not exactly, He was like, well, the place that you stayed is for sale.
Oh
Now, let me
my
explain where
goodness.
I stayed. He had purchased some land and he had built four different cabinas, all standalone. They were all different sizes. An in-ground pool there. He built it specifically solely for Airbnb. So I stayed obviously in one cabina. So when he told me the house was for sale where I stayed, I asked him, I said, well, is it just the one that I stayed in, or is it all four as one package? He said, all four is one package. And so I said, well, okay. I said, I'll do some research when I get back home and I'll let you know. Well, when he said all four is a package, in my mind, I said, that's it. There's no way in the world I can afford it. So I didn't do any research once I got back because I'm like, oh, that's not anything I could. And now, mind you, I had never even asked him the price, but just in my head and knowing how the housing market was in the States, I'm thinking that's about how it's going to be here. So there's no way in the world I can afford to buy four houses and land with an
Oh
in-ground
my
pool. So
goodness.
that was that. And I was talking to one of my childhood friends about it. And she's always looking for investment opportunities. And so she was like, well, how much was he asking for the place? And I said, I don't know. I said, I literally didn't even ask him because I know I can't afford it. And so she said, check with him to see. And that's literally how this ball got started rolling. So when I made contact with
Goodness.
him again to see, and he told me the asking price, I was like, oh my goodness, that's like the price of one house in America.
Right.
I could actually do this. And so that's how my ball started rolling. And I own my home in the States. And so it kind of launched from there. And I decided, since this is doable, the place is a turnkey. It's already up and running. It's an established Airbnb. Literally, all I would have to do is get the key and move in, and it's good to go.
Oh my
Everything is there that I
goodness.
needed. So that was
Wow.
how I started on my process. And of course, I sold my home in the States, sold everything, sold my car. I My plan was to exit about the end part no later than December of 2022. So I'm in the interim, I'd of course made an additional trip back here to Costa Rica to
Right.
get attorney, meet with my attorney, and get paperwork started. I did that in July of 22. So all of this time from July to December, we were working on it. And with your attorneys, if they change one word, then they have to do an addendum. Well, I did not know at that point that generally Costa Rican culture is not accustomed to dealing with attorneys and the way that we do things by the book and
Yeah.
in
Kind of
America.
like a handshake agreement.
Exactly. That's what they do.
Okay, great. Here's your
So
keys.
every time addendums would come out, I noticed that it would take him a while before he would sign his.
Right,
And
right.
I was in contact with my attorney, but I never knew why it would always take him a while.
Wow.
Well, fast forward to December, there was, I don't know what number addendum this was. And finally, he was just like, I don't understand what's going on. Why do we keep having to sign the same thing over and over again? And I explained to him, or I tried to, he didn't understand. And for the properties that he had that I was going to buy, there were some upgrades that I knew I wanted to do going in, like there were no air conditioners in any of the units.
Right.
There was just a small, as I call it, the Costa Rican washer, so I wanted to go in and get at least 2 sets of washers and dryers. So,
Right.
and I knew I needed to purchase a vehicle here. So all of those things, I was going to take out a small loan to cover a portion of it. I actually did find a lender here in Costa Rica. He's from the States. He's been here for several years. And so he has a finance company that he is able to actually provide financing for expats because it's almost next to impossible, as you know, to get financing here in Costa
Right.
Rica. So I had
Oh,
already, made contact with him. Everything was running smooth. And of course, before they actually do the loan, they have to go and, inspect the property, set
right,
site
right.
on. So that was at the point that they actually made contact. They made contact with the seller. He agreed. And the day, I guess, that they were going to go out there, they contacted him again. And he's like, okay, explain to me again. They explained to him again what was going on. And when he heard the word mortgage, that was it for him. He could not process and understand that it was not going to be his
Yeah,
mortgage.
yeah.
Now, mind you, they do speak Spanish, the guy that owns the company and his partner, but the guy, the owner, the seller, he just could not process and comprehend. He kept saying, no, 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 I don't want a mortgage. I don't want a mortgage. I've already paid for this. So that on the heels of all of the addendums that have been having to be signed and re-signed and him not understanding that. And then he also told them, well, Nikki hasn't even paid me a deposit. She told me she would pay me a deposit. He did not understand how escrow accounts work, and he didn't understand that the money, although the money is here in Costa Rica and in an escrow, you're not going to get it until everything is a done deal. And
Right.
so he just flipped out and he backed out. And so, the financer, he contacted me. He was like, look, maybe you can talk to him. Maybe he will understand from you and listen to you since you all have a rapport. But that was it, like that. So we had been working on this from July, and that specific date, if I remember correctly, was December 15th. The bottom fell out. So of course I
Oh my
shed tears,
goodness.
because I was thinking everything was on schedule. This was my place. And I was
Right.
like, I had been praying about it and I thought this was the place that God had for me. So I shed tears and I cried and I just told myself, well, back to the drawing board. But the thing was, since I had already sent the deposit and it was being held in escrow, you of course can get that money back. However, by the time you paid wiring fees to get it here, if you want to get it back, you have to pay wiring fees for it to come back. And then by the time I find another property, pay wiring fees. I'm like, I'm not going to spend all of that money. So
Right.
I just told myself, I think they would hold it in escrow for 90 days. I don't recall the amount of time, but I just decided that was the time frame that I had to find myself another place here.
Right. 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 So you
So
don't have to move the money out.
exactly.
Right.
So I started, and then of course, by that time, of course, my house is sold in the States. My
Right.
everything. I had
Right.
been living with a
Oh my
coworker
goodness.
this time because I think my house sold in August. So I had been living with a coworker from August, and here it is, the middle of December, and I'm thinking, okay, December 31st, I'll be out of
Wow.
here. And that really kind of threw everything off because I know that you can buy things online sight unseen. However, that was not something that I feel comfortable doing because I only have one shot at this. I don't have money. Oh, well, if this goes belly up, then I have this other stash over here to invest and find another place. So that I felt really uncomfortable because I'm like, I have to go online. I have to just look online and find a place. And then as well, too, that left me with having to use a realtor, which again, I did not feel comfortable with because I don't speak Spanish. I'm like, I will just have to find a random person that I don't know, and I will have to try to trust them to take care of this process for me. So needless to say, I was very discouraged, but I was like, I'm just going to continue plodding on.
Right.
Now back to the guy that was my guide. We're still friends to this day, a great guy. So, we were still in contact. And so when I told him, I was like, it fell through. And so he was like, well, what are you going to do? And I'll have to find a realtor, but I don't know it. So he recommended me a realtor, gave me the guy's name and number, but I didn't reach out because again, I'm still thinking maybe if I can just find a place on my own, contact, do it myself.
Right.
I already
Right.
have an attorney,
Right.
then I can still leave out that third person that I won't know, that I don't feel comfortable with because I
Right.
don't know.
Right. Right.
In the interim, I get a call from somebody. And when I say God just worked everything out, when I get a call from the realtor that my friend had referred me to, I knew when he gave me the name, it sounded like an American name, but
Right.
received the call from the guy, and he was like, "Look, Caesar told me you were going to reach out to me. I haven't heard anything. I was just checking to see if you're still looking." Long story short, it was a Black American that has been here for, I think he came here in the early 90s. He has an established, just, it was perfect. And so when I realized that, I automatically felt comfortable because I'm like, this is somebody, he knows where I'm coming from. He knows how we are accustomed to doing and transacting business. And then as well, too, I felt comfortable because he was Black. And
Right.
so I'm like, we can relate on so many points.
What area are you in?
I am in Parrita, which Parrita is about
Okay.
midway between Jaco and Quepos.
Oh,
So I'm on
Parrita. Okay.
the Southern
Oh,
Pacific coast.
Black
Yeah.
realtor up that way.
Black Realtor, his name is Neal, and his office is in Quepos. So this was his area. So when I say everything just absolutely worked out, and when I spoke to Ron, like we hit it off instantly, like we had just been friends for forever. And
Right.
so, like I said, it just worked out. And so he explained to me then, though, he told me, he said, when you're looking for houses, he said, here in Costa Rica, it's not like MLS in the States. He
No,
said
they don't
they
really
don't
have
keep
MLS.
updated. He
Yeah.
said you might see a house that's on there that's been
On there
sold
for or on
for
there for
years.
10 years.
Exactly. And so that's what he told me. So he said, as you're looking, he said, what you have to do, he said, whenever you see something you're interested in, if it has a number, because a lot of the listings have no type of number, he said, if it has a number, write the number down. He said, if there's no number, just send me as much description of it as you can give me. He said, and then in turn, he said, I will have to reach out to the realtor that's handling it. And we go from that point. When I say Ron was an absolute godsend, I know each time I sent him, I would send him 15 to 20 different listings. And he would go through all of them. He would get
Wow.
back, oh, this is not available, this.
Wow.
So this last heap for the house that I am in now, when I sent that heap of listings to him, I had seen this house, and like when I saw the pictures, I was thinking there's no way in the world that house looks like that. Or if it does, I know it's been sold many, many moons ago.
Right,
So
right,
I sent him the list. And of course, it would take a while because, he had to do his legwork and wait to hear back from other realtors. And
right.
so when he sent back, as I'm going through the list, because he would just put, beside each one, not available, or, it's not registered, or all kinds of little things that, we would not be accustomed to if something
Right.
is for sale in the States.
Right.
And this was the main house that I was interested in of that list. And he said, still available, and the seller is very motivated. And
Oh,
the seller had already sent an offer to me right off the top that was less than the listing price. Long story short, again, the seller was an American. He was a chiropractor out of Houston, and he had been coming here back and forth for years. But when COVID hit in the States, he ended up having to close his practice in Houston because, yes, chiropractor, that was not an essential. So when he closed the practice there in Houston, he actually moved here permanently, decided, okay, I'll just set up my practice here in Costa Rica. Excuse me, in Costa Rica. Well, during that time too, he had gotten married and had a child. Well, once he had his child, he decided, I don't want my child to grow up in Costa Rica. I want my child to be schooled and educated in the States. And, once COVID cleared and the world opened back up, he went back to Houston and opened his practice, did another practice in Houston.
oh,
So he was very motivated because he was there in Houston, but his wife and his child were still here in Costa Rica because she was waiting for her visa to clear. So the house had been on the market for a while because houses they move
yes,
slowly here.
yes, they do.
And so it had been on the market for a while, and she had been working on her visa process for a while, to the point that he was thinking, okay, her visa is going to come through any day. She's going to be in the States. That house is going to be sitting there empty. So that's why he was so motivated to sell.
Wow.
And again, when he bought this house, he completely remodeled it, just from head to toe, from the top to the bottom. The appliances were shipped from the States. So, like, literally, when I say it was a godsend and this was God, where God meant for me to be. So, long story short, that's how I ended up here. I got back with him with a counter offer, even less than what he offered me from the get-go. He accepted that, and here I am.
Oh my goodness.
I
Oh
know,
my
right?
goodness.
I know.
That's amazing. And all while you were telling the story, I was waiting for you to say the other guy changed his mind. And then he said, okay. And I'm like, waiting. I'm like, she didn't get the other
No,
part.
no. And like once we initially so initially, of course, all I had was his name.
Right.
And of course, once I got the name, I Googled him, and and so I already knew that he was, out of Houston. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, this might, he's an American because he had a Middle Eastern name, but
Mm,
that was his lineage, but he's an
right.
American,
Right.
born and everything there. So, but once I realized he was an American, I'm like, this is going to be even easier because I know how to communicate, and they will understand the process. They will be accustomed to dealing with attorneys. They're accustomed to dealing with realtors. So, like, when I say everything was just smooth as butter, unbelievably,
Wow.
so many horror stories of people moving here. And when I say, I mean, and literally, that was one reason I named my Airbnb.
Yes.
I do run Airbnb out of my home. I named it by the grace of God because I
Right.
know that literally that's the only way that I'm able to be here now in this spot, in this time and place, living my absolute best life.
Right.
It's nothing but the grace of God.
And
Yeah,
also, it confirms the statement of everything happens for a reason. You know what I
exactly.
mean? So you didn't give up. You're like,
Mhm.
okay, I got this. I'll do this. I'll do this, and just keep
Keep pushing.
going forward. Yeah, keep going forward, and things work
Yep.
out. Well, listen. So now that you're there, what do you think? What do you think? Are you happy there? Is it everything you thought it would be?
I'm
What are your
ecstatic.
thoughts?
I'm ecstatic, and I do know. And again, I didn't just willy-nilly, oh, woohoo, I'm going to Costa Rica.
Right.
I did do some research because, I did research to see, first of all, whether or not it was good investment you know, to purchase property in Costa Rica. And yes, that was so. I did do my research, and I knew that coming here, it was not going to be like the States.
Right.
I did not expect it to be like the States. I was not looking for a place like the States because in my mind, if I wanted to be somewhere that's like the States, I'll just stay in the States.
Right.
So the culture is very different here. The main difference that I see is that it's just not all of the creature comforts that we have in the States. The conveniences, oh, well, I don't feel like cooking dinner. I'll call DoorDash or, those conveniences, the ease, just the ease and the comfort is not here, but the necessities are here. And to me, everything far surpasses and makes up for those creature comforts. My cost of living here is so much cheaper, just so much cheaper than the States. And like I said, I sold my house there, so I used that money to purchase my house here. So I have no overhead as far as mortgage or rent.
Right.
And my utilities, I do have air conditioner in all of my bedrooms and in the main room, but however, I'm a nature girl, I'm a country girl, and I get cold easy. So generally speaking, most of the times I don't even run my air conditioners. Like,
Oh,
yeah, if I take a nap in the middle of the day, because it did take me a while to get out of taking naps here because the sun and the heat here, it's so different than stateside, it
right.
drains you. So when I first came, I was having to take naps every day. But other than that, I mean, I don't use the air conditioner. Of course, when the guests come in, they'll turn on the air conditioner. But on average, my electricity bill is about $60 a month. My water bill has never been more than $7.50.
Wow.
And my my house, of course, the stove is gas, so I just have to buy the gas canisters, and they're only $15 a canister, and I've only had to buy canisters for the stove twice since I've been here. And then I have a gas grill, out on the patio, and I've only had to buy a canister for that once. So like I say, my cost of living here is it's a fraction of what it
Right.
was in the States.
Exactly.
So
Now, Parrita's not really that large of a place,
no,
is
it's
it?
not. And
Yeah, I
see, and
think I
that's what
remember
I
going
want.
through there on my way to Manuel Antonio from Haka.
Correct.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm not a big city girl, so I did not want big city. I did not want to be in a big tourist area. I wanted some place where I could experience and be in the culture of
Right.
where I want to be. Because like I said, if I want to be in an expat community surrounded by expats, I could have stayed where I was. So
How close is it to Quepos though?
Quepos, well, you know how in miles, I will
I
say in
know,
miles,
no.
because
Okay.
miles and
Time.
distance.
Time.
In time, about 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Okay.
And that's if you don't get stuck behind the ox train or, a tractor or, but yeah, about 30 minutes to
So if it's
Quepos.
30 minutes to Quepos, is it about almost the same distance back to Haka?
It's about 35 to 40 minutes
Yeah,
to
because it's
Haka.
almost about halfway
It's
through.
yes, it's
Okay.
literally almost about halfway, and I'm in a beach town. So my thing is I go to the beach in the mornings. That's my therapy. Like
Right.
it just soothes my soul and it just calms my spirit to go to the beach. So that was one reason too that I made sure where I was going was going to be a beach town because I do love the mountains and like I love the La Fortuna areas. Absolutely beautiful. Love it, but it's just too far away from the water for
Right.
me.
Right.
So
So
yeah.
how's your Spanish?
Woo! We are working on that.
You're
That is
working on
a work in progress. I thought by this point in time that I would just be like, "Blah, blah, blah, blah." It doesn't work like that. And I don't know
okay.
because the older you get, your mind learns and absorbs a whole
Much
lot.
slower.
Yes.
You know,
So
go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I mean, I can understand a lot more than I can speak, but I find that probably I could speak more than I do, but I'm just afraid to mess up and say something wrong. So I tend to not speak too much. I do have some friends that I will speak with them because I know if I just tear something up, they'll just
Right.
correct me and they'll give me the right way to say it. But yes, so the Spanish, I do my Duolingo faithfully every day, but it's a work in
Yeah,
progress.
I know. I was going to say, I feel the same way. Like we've been here like 8 years.
Hmm.
My Spanish is still not very good. But I think part of it has to do, well, I'm older too, so it's the same thing. And
Hmm.
we took Spanish classes for
Okay.
4 years. And I grammar wise,
Mhm.
I know what it's supposed to be, but when I
Mhm.
actually get out to speak, I can't ever really remember
Correct.
how I'm supposed to put it together. And I'm kind of like you. And I'll be like, I want to say something, and I'll kind of come up with the words, and I'm just kind of like, nah, I don't really think, oh, never mind. I won't
Exactly.
even
That's
say
me.
it. You know what I mean?
And it's so easy. I mean, it's a good thing to have the phones and the translator apps, but
Oh,
there's
totally. Too
because I
stuck, you just pick up the phone,
exactly because
put it
I'm
in
realizing
front of
I'm
them.
like for years throughout the entire history of the world, people have gone to other cultures and they learn the language. Why am I not learning? But it's because I have this crutch that's so readily available and I
Right,
fall back on it so like all the time. I fall back. I'm just like, oh, I'll just grab my phone and get
right.
it on over with. So,
Well,
but
the
yeah.
other thing too for me is like because we are in a there's a lot of expats and a lot of it's a big city, so not
Mhm.
San Jose, but like the suburbs. And but I don't work and I don't
Mhm.
have children. So
Mhm.
I think when people come, if they have to do a job or if they have children, then they have
Yeah.
to be able to, to correspond with them
Yes.
more. And because if you have Spanish and you don't use it, then you lose it, which is kind of
Correct.
what happened to us because we took it all the time, but we never really used it. Even when
Mhm.
we were in Gracia, we didn't use it that much. And we
Mhm.
speak a lot of Spanish in Gracia, but we would get to a store or something.
Mhm.
If one of the locals knows that you speak English, a lot of times they want to practice their English, and so they go off into
Exactly.
English, and I let them.
Yes.
It's a lot easier for me. You know what I mean? So, but I found that I can read better. I'm pretty
Oh,
good at
yes.
reading. If I see
Oh.
something in writing, I can
Mhm.
figure it out. But when I'm trying to put it together in my head, and then sometimes I think when I'm saying something, I'm wondering like, is this like a slang that we would say in the US and they're not even going to understand what I'm talking about because maybe
Exactly.
they don't really say that. You know,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
that's kind of held me back a little bit too. But the people are really nice and,
Oh,
for the
they're
most part.
wonderful.
And
They're
you get too
wonderful.
stuck before you take out the translator. A lot of times they'll go find someone
That can,
that does
yes.
speak English and they'll come out and speak and help you. So,
But you touched on the people, and I do want to touch on that. I moved here solo. You know, I've never felt unsafe and the people are just so wonderfully warm and welcoming. And I have been blessed with the absolute best neighbors. They are an older couple and they have essentially adopted me as their daughter.
oh, that's
They
wonderful.
they don't speak English, so we talk at the fence. So that helps me some with my Spanish too. But again, I'm more comfortable. I can say and mess up with them. But yeah, I mean, it's like if anybody, I want to say, especially single females, don't be afraid. If you want to go and explore, do it. And
And
don't
you can
be
make it work.
exactly. Don't be afraid of failure. If it doesn't work, then so what? You
Right.
still tried and
Exactly.
it's not the end of your journey. That just means that it was not the right time or place. But don't live life in fear. I mean, just
Um,
go with God is what I say. Go with God and just do it. So and I'm loving my life. I
and
really
the other thing too is like I mean, I've been here and a lot of people have left, but I've never encountered anyone that left that didn't feel that they got something positive
oh yes.
out of being here. You know what I mean? Even if you just found out that, well, the next time I do something, I'm not going to do this because I
Exactly.
did this and it didn't work out for me, but it was a lesson. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I think that I'm the same way. I encourage people to just get out there and do it. And if you have to go
Mhm.
back, fortunately, we all do have a country that we can go back to. Most
Exactly.
people have some kind of relatives or some friends or
Mhm.
something like that. So it's not like if it doesn't work out here, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? You know
Exactly.
what I
You
mean?
definitely you
Yeah.
do
And then
have
you get, and I
power.
think people also do get a lot of good out of just being here because the
Mhm.
people are wonderful. The culture here, the
The food.
weather. Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot to be said. It's so calm. People lose
Mhm.
weight. here. Their stress levels go down, their blood pressure goes down
Yeah,
because just not all the stresses.
it's not. It
Being in the
is.
States, you'll usually end up eating better because you
Mm-hmm.
don't have all those foods that you've been
Yep.
used to in the States, which is why I think a lot of people end up losing weight as well.
Yeah, and I mean, because it's natural. You're getting, you don't have all of the preservatives
Right.
and as well too, you well, especially where I am, there's not access to that readily quick and easy food that tends to be less healthy. I mean, you're gonna have to cook your food and buy the fresh food that, it's just a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot healthier. I know for me,
It
it's a
is
lot
healthier.
healthier
It's a
than in the
wonderful place. You were
Mhm.
saying something about your vehicle. Did you bring your vehicle with you?
No, I did not. So I again, God's hand was in
Uh-oh.
there.
Here
So
it
back
comes.
my wonderful friend Caesar, who was my guide, and I cannot recommend him enough either. He was trying to help me find a vehicle even before I actually, touched my feet here. And, we went to a few different places, saw different vehicles, and nothing, nothing, nothing. But he would always find them and show them to me. And I was like, Caesar, where are you seeing these vehicles? He was like, on Marketplace, on Marketplace. And I had looked on Marketplace, but I would never see anything.
Right.
This one particular day, we had gone to somewhere and we had stopped off in Hako. We were going to Hako for lunch, and I was like, I'm gonna try one more time looking on Marketplace and see if I can find something. So logged on the Marketplace. It was probably about the third vehicle I scrolled to. I was like, look, Caesar, look at this. Okay. I love to camp. Like I said, I'm a country girl. I love to camp. And like the week before, I had just told Caesar, look, we're going to have to start going camping once I get everything settled and situated. We're going to have to start going camping. And he was like, in the van? I said, no, tent, in a tent. I want to tent camp. Okay, the truck that I saw, I already knew I wanted to get a four-wheel drive vehicle and I wanted a truck because I'd always wanted a truck in the States, never gotten one.
Right.
So I'm going to get a truck. Well, this truck that I saw, it was four-wheel drive and it had a rooftop tent on it. So I was like, this is perfect. And so I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to reach out to the guy. Long story short, that is now my vehicle. I've named him Larry Boy. The guy that was selling it was an expat. He was
Oh my
from
goodness.
England though. And the when I contacted him, he was like, first I was of course trying to ascertain whether or not it was actually legitimate, whatever.
Right.
Turned out to be the nicest guy. And I said, look, I said, because it was listed as the rooftop tent was not going to come with it. And
Mm.
so when I actually got to talking back and forth, I told him, I said, I'm very interested. I said, that's why I want the truck. And he was like, well, I was actually going to take the tent off tonight because I've already found a buyer for it. And I was like, no, I really want it. He was like, well, I have to tack on some extra money onto the asking price. That's quite understandable. I do understand that. He was like,
Right.
well, if you're serious, then I'll hold on to it. I said, I'm serious. Met the guy, test drove the truck, just the just the nicest guy. He had been here, I think, 3 years, and he was about to move to Sri Lanka. He was a digital nomad that likes to surf. So he was going to Sri Lanka to catch some waves for a while in Sri Lanka. So we, and as you know, here in Costa Rica, you have to use an attorney when you're purchasing the vehicle. So again, my attorney, so the day that we agreed to meet with the attorney to sign all the paperwork, once we were going to do that, then the plans were I was going to drive him up to San Jose because he was actually leaving out of the country the very next day. So that's what we did. We went and met the attorney, met up in Quepos, signed all of the paperwork. And, I'd already been in contact with my bank about doing the transfer or whatever.
Right.
So, bam, went ahead and started processing that. So we signed the paperwork. We are en route up to San Jose. I get a call from my bank. They said, the transfer is not going through. And I said, well, why? Well, since he's a digital nomad, the banks that he used, they are all the online banks. They're not the brick and mortar. And some kind of way, the what is it, the routing number and the name that he gave for the bank was not the same name that was coming up on my bank's end for the names. So they were like, we're not going to send this wire through because the names are not matching up.
Right, right.
Long story short, by that time, it's getting to be the end of the business day. And so the guy's name that sold me the truck was Adam. I'm like, Adam, do you have another bank account that's actually a brick and mortar that, that we could use? He didn't have one. His only other option were his parents in England, but he said he didn't want to use them because that would affect their taxes purposes if I
Right.
wired all that money to them. Long story short, and I had my friend Caesar in tow. Long story short, by the time we got another bank, one of his other banks, and I got back to my bank, the time for the transfers had cut off. I didn't know at that time that there was a specific time that, they stopped international wire transfers because I was like, please, I'm like, this guy's leaving the country. We've got to get this done. And we're like, there's nothing we can do. This is literally out of our hands. They said the best we can do is first thing in the morning. We'll start on it first thing in the morning. Well, in the interim, he's leaving out. We've already signed all of this paperwork. So essentially the truck is mine. And so Caesar got worried. He's like, well, what are we going to do now? I said nothing. When I say the guy was the absolute nicest, he took me at my word because I told him, I said, look, I said, and he understood, because he's an expat, he understood that there was nothing to be done about that. He said, well, just first thing in the morning, he said, just let me know what they say. And I said, well, we need to have a backup plan if this one doesn't go through like the other one. Well, our only other backup plan was that I would just wire him money, do a transfer directly from my account to his account. But like I explained to him, they only let me transfer a certain amount every
Right.
30 days. And so
Right.
I told him, I said, if it comes to that, essentially, I'm going to have to make installment plans to get you all of the money for the vehicle. He was like, well, that'll be fine. He said, I don't think it'll come to that, but if it does, that'll be fine. Again, nothing but the grace of God. So that man left the country, taking me at my word that I was going to go ahead with this process and get him his money. And the next day, the next morning, when my bank actually called me before even business hours, and they had gotten started on it, they were like, everything looks like it's going to go through and everything. And then to top it all off, the icing on the cake, he didn't even charge me anything extra for my rooftop tent on the truck.
Oh,
Once we met, he was like, I'm not even going to charge you anything extra for that. And that's a minimum of about $1,300 value minimum. So like when I say my
wow.
story has just been just absolutely blessed.
My
God's hand has been
goodness.
in this from day one. It really has. So,
So
and
what
I love,
about this? Go ahead. Are you a resident?
no, I am not a resident
Uh-oh, been another
because,
story.
well, no, the thing is that all of the way, you can be a pensionado, which I didn't technically retire because I had a few more years before I could retire, but this is my thing why I decided not to work those last few years. If I stayed to and did 25 years, I was working for the sheriff's department. The thing with that was at the end of your 25 years, you got your insurance free for the rest of your life, which is great, wonderful. However, I already knew once I retired, I was not planning on being in the States anyway. So my thought process was, why am I going to work and give you guys 7 more years of my life
Yeah.
for something that I will not need at the end of that 7 years? Tomorrow's not promised. I might be old, broke down, and decrepit by the time I retire. I'm going to go now while I can still enjoy life and still experience, what I want to go and experience. So I don't qualify in the pensionado. I
What
don't
about
qualify
investors?
under
That
rentista. And
investors either?
no, and under investment because my home that I bought, thankfully, it was under the
Under the
threshold.
amount? Oh boy.
Yes, it did meet. So literally, I don't qualify for
For
any of the
anything, huh?
for anything, in which I'm okay with that because I
Right.
was like, well, I'll just do my border runs. And then once they changed it to 6 months instead of 90 days, that made it even better. So
Right.
I will just, I guess maybe once I reach age for Social Security, I guess I could apply as a pensionado then. But
Right.
yeah, but until then,
And they also changed the rules for the being able to drive
mhm.
too.
Yes,
I think
correct.
because they used to make you have to go out
It was still 90 days
90 days or
initially.
something, but I think
Yes,
now
but
they've
the
changed. Now
driving.
it goes to 180 or does
Correct. So it matches. Yeah, it matches the 180. So, that
right.
way my license still stays valid. So yes, so
Every 6 months really isn't that bad. We had to go out
no.
every 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that for like a couple years. We did that until we ran out of places.
Mm-hmm.
We went
Yeah.
to a couple places twice, and then it was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I'm not going back to Nicaragua, Panama. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
I don't want to go
Yeah.
another time. So we said, well, maybe it's time. But we were already retired.
Yeah.
We had
So
our Social Security, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Oh
yeah.
my goodness! Well, this is a story I never thought. This is so exciting. So
Mhm.
let me see if there's anything else I wanted to ask you that I didn't get to ask you here. Oh, a couple questions. Okay, so
Mhm.
you have a car.
Yes.
Um, grocery shopping in your area, or do you have to go to Quepos or what?
No, have grocery shopping of I have Maxi Pally here, which Maxi Pally is
Yes,
the
okay.
Latin American version of Walmart kind of.
Right,
So
right.
I have the Maxi Pally here in the mega supers, and so I don't have to go anywhere else for my grocery shopping.
And hair care options?
Oh, that's rough. However, I I stocked up before I came,
Good.
and whenever I have people come visit me, I have them bring me stuff.
They
But
bring
it's
you stuff.
too. I did a border run down to Paso Canoas, and when I say I hit a gold mine down there, is it the Jerusalem Mall? I think it is
Hmm.
one of the stores in there because I used Cantu products in the States anyway.
Right,
And when I say they had more Cantu products than I've ever even seen stateside.
right.
So when I did do that border run down to Paso Canoas, I got, I kind of tried to stock up on some things then. So
And you know,
yes,
also when you can always add the states in as a border run.
correct. That is
So,
correct.
because
So
we did, we
yeah,
went to Houston and stocked up
mhm,
on, a bunch of stuff that
that's
we
what you
needed
have
and
to
came
do.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, but I
So,
have not been
wow.
able to find any hair care products locally.
Yeah,
So
that's rough.
yeah.
So, okay, let's see. I think I've asked you everything that I was going to ask you. Well, I didn't ask you everything, but your story was so exciting and interesting. I just crossed all those questions off. But we know that Costa Rica has been good to you, and I think it
Yes.
has been everything that you expected.
Yes. Mhm.
Um, what do you think is the least favorite thing about being here?
Again, it's just my personal, opinion. I'm not even going to say least favorite, but it's something that has it takes me a bit to adjust to, and I still have to work on it.
Uh-huh.
I am very much an introvert and a loner. And, the Costa Rican culture is very, very welcoming. They're very, very sociable, super sociable people. So honestly, like sometimes I don't feel like, as I say, I don't feel like peopling. But you're kind of forced to people here because they're just so, they're such a sociable people and my
Right,
dear neighbors that I love, they're always wanting me to come over and eat and I had to learn by trial and error that, they do get offended if they offer you food and you don't, they're offended and or their feelings are a bit hurt.
right, right,
Like I'm fine with just me, but I think as well too, I think a lot of times they think, oh, well, she's lonely over there. So, but yeah, that is literally the only thing. So, like I say, that takes as an introvert to, have to people when you don't really want to
right,
people, as I call it.
right,
That's an adjustment for me, but that's a work in progress for me, like my Spanish. So,
right.
because that's not a bad thing, but
No, it's not.
I'm fine with my book. I can just read. I go to the beach and I can come back and read on my porch in peace the rest of the day. And I'm fine. But yeah, I have to people. So that I guess that's making me work on my socialization and my social
There you
skills.
go.
Yeah.
And they're not judgmental. You know
No,
what I mean? Either so like when you're peopling and you don't have to worry that you're going to come away and that that
they're
there's
going to
going to be
be
any judgment about it
saying
because they're
mumbling.
very
None of that.
accepting and of
Yes.
people just like they are. That's one of
And
the
that
things
is
I
one thing too that I like. Like I said, I feel comfortable in my like if I just want to run to the store in the States, as I would say, looking like a bomb, but in
love.
my around the house clothes, dare run to the store in my around the house clothes because, oh dear, you might see somebody and they're going to be like, oh, did you see her? Like, run to the store in my around the house clothes here, and it's just okay. Everything is okay. It is okay, as my friend Caesar likes to say. It is okay. Yes, they don't care. They don't judge you. I mean, it's wonderful.
It's
It
great.
really
Yeah, I
is.
know. Well,
Yeah.
so in closing, are there any tips that you would give to people that might be thinking about moving besides just do it, or any words of wisdom that you might want to share?
The tips I would say, if you are thinking about moving, I would advise, and I know everybody's situation is different, but if you are able to find an attorney to help you with that process, it's good. I know a lot of people do turn to the Facebook groups in which they do help, but you can sometimes get such conflicting advice, and a lot of times everybody's story is different. So just because
Right.
somebody says something and it's somebody says something different, that might have been the case for everybody involved. But I would suggest to, because whenever you're doing a move like that, it's big, it's life changing. So
Mm.
you do need someone that is well versed, with the way this culture works and legal requirements for different things, because I do feel safe that my home has been purchased correctly and properly and registered properly, that some years down the road, I don't have to worry about, oh dear, you don't really own that house because, I did it the bootleg way, as I would say. So, and don't be, like I say, don't be afraid or intimidated. And as well, too, don't come looking down on someone else's culture because it's not the same as yours.
Right.
This is not America, but because something is different does not mean it's less than, or does not mean it's, bad. I mean,
Exactly.
if you go to another culture, you should be willing to accept whatever that culture is. But
Right. We're
yeah,
visitors, basically,
correct.
in
Yes,
their
we're
country. So,
visiting in their place. So,
right.
but that's the main thing, like I said, and just be, and of course, be safe-minded wherever you go. Don't, this might sound not politically correct, but don't go acting like you're the American just because you're an American wherever you go. That's not a nice, that's a bit
Not a good
condescending.
look.
But yeah, it's not a good look on anybody. So, but yeah, just they're really warm and welcoming people, and they will help you if you need help. And so that would be my main thing, just to make sure you do or make moves with some type of legal advice, and
Right.
it make me feel comfortable. And that's as well too. I forgot to say that too. My attorneys that I found, Americans. Her father had started the firm here in the 80s. So they have been here, even so again, I felt comfortable with them because again, they could, relate to where I was coming from and what I was accustomed to. And so that was great. And there will be my attorneys for everything that I need here. So
Wow, that's wonderful. Well, can you tell us, give us some information on how some of our viewers can get in touch with you to uh, rent one of your Airbnbs?
okay, that's good. I have 2 rooms here. On Airbnb, you have to list each one separately, but if you search on Airbnb La Gracia de Dios, Parrita, then it will come up. It's about the third or the fourth, maybe, when you scroll down, and the listing actually says, because Airbnb does translate, the listing will actually say by the grace of God. So I have by the grace of God number 1 and number 2. So that is how you find me
That is
on Airbnb.
that is wonderful, and I will put the link in the description box here for the YouTube viewers so that they can contact you. And I just want to say again, thank you so much. This has been
Thank you for the
such an
opportunity.
I mean, really, this was not what I was expecting at all, and I found it so interesting and exciting. I'm so happy that you're here and that you're happy and everything is going well for you. And I wish you only the best.
Thank you so much. So
Thank
much.
you.
Pura Vida.
Pura Vida. Bye.